Hello, GABV colleagues from around the world. Thank you for taking time to join us for our periodic member spotlights. This is an opportunity to learn about the unique ways that leaders and their financial institutions in the GABV approach their challenges and create opportunities to enact their social, environmental, and cultural missions. We're so happy that you could join us today, and we are going to get started. We have today Vladimir Vukotić, and he is the CEO of 3Bank Serbia. Vladimir is an economist. He holds an executive MBA from Sheffield University. He started his career in development finance with Opportunity International in Montenegro. And he worked there as a loan officer. And then he very enterprisingly wrote a proposal in 2000 for starting a microfinance bank in Serbia. So the proposal was accepted and he jumped to OBS in 2002, and suddenly he found himself heading the bank's micro-lending division, which went broke in less than a year. Since 2009, when he took over as the bank's COO, he masterminded the strategic repositioning of OBS from a boutique SME bank that it once was to a provider of finance for financially excluded clients, which has been a market niche with almost no competitors, and we want to hear about that. He invented completely new markets for the banking industry, such as financing subsistence, mixed income farmers, low-income pensioners, and micro-business startups. Vladimir took over as the bank's CEO in 2014, and during his tenure, OBS relevance has jumped exponentially and achieved 43% market share in financing farmers and over 23% market share in financing entrepreneurs. I don't think any of us in the GABV can match that easily. Together with outreach, OBS has excelled in financial performance, achieving the best ROE and ROA in Serbian banking for the last 5 years, and one of the best loan portfolios default rates, which is only 2%. This puts OBS among the most successful microfinance banks in Southeast Europe. So with that, I would like to invite you, Vladimir, to join us on the screen. There you are. Good. Good. Welcome. I hope I accurately reflected your CV. You may want to add a couple of things to that just as we get started, because I think what we're really interested in as GABV bankers is understanding how you've entrepreneurially really shifted the way that we can think about banking in Serbia that will have implications for our other banks as well. So shall we just start there, a little bit about you?
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and I'm very grateful for being able to share our story to our friends from GABV community. I would say that first, as you said, entrepreneurial. Yeah, I had a small target. I had a target to come back to live in Serbia, and I basically proposed something which was, very hard to believe that will be something that will be accepted by USAID, who funded the first project with only 1 million. We started $1 million. So, I'm always saying, be brave, be bold, and be brave. Try. I tried as a loan officer. I was not even a manager at that time, but I was a really good loan officer, the best in Montenegro, maybe of the group of 20. So, as you said, I then soon realized that being big doesn't mean being good, because I was always thinking a big bank will always defeat a small bank. But from the period of 2002, when we started, to the period of 2007-8, I learned that being big means many times being slow, being not entrepreneurial, being too bureaucratic and administrative, and not looking at what the client needs. So basically, that was the secret of our success and our ongoing 14 years of the good result.
Describe for me this shift from OBS to 3Bank. So just so our viewers understand that.
That's why we did it. We did it because, and it's really Serbia specific. Our clients, 75% are rural people. They don't speak English. Opportunity is an English name, and nobody could really pronounce it. So it was the name of our 100% shareholder for many years, who enabled us to build this bank. But at the same time, when we had a GABV ownership in place. 78% of our bank is now owned by other GABV members, other than Opportunity. We wanted to have a really modern name, which would reflect our nature. And our nature is triple bottom institution, triple bottom line. So we have three targets, not one target, which is profits, but it's planet, people, and prosperity. And then number three is very modern. It's always puts you in a Google search at the top. It puts you at the top in any search, like even in the companies registered search, we are number 2 because there is one company that is named one, it's not a bank, it's another company, but imagine. So, and then it's very digital name. So you can always connect digital products. So, and the last but not least, it's very orthodox, and we are in Orthodox country, and we are planning to expand in Orthodox countries. We are sure that 3Bank will be expanded in neighboring countries, and they're mainly Orthodox countries. So 3 Orthodox countries means good. It's something. It's very positive.
So when we were having our preparatory discussions, one of the things you said is that you really have focused solely on products that create impact, and you sort of pushed everything out, and that you're breaking the rules of traditional banking because you're really finding ways to lower your compliance costs. Can you get into this and share with us how you're doing that?
We had many disadvantages and many bad moments, which in fact enabled us to do what we did. And one of these bad moments was that when we got this kind of money to open a bank in Serbia by USAID again, we tried to be universal bank, and that almost bankrupted us in the next 6 years. We were undercapitalized, and when you are bankrupted and when you have negative capital, nobody wants you. And so I was given the playing field to create what I wanted, basically. I created, from a small boutique universal bank, we created a non-bank institution, which focused only on impact and enabling financially excluded clients, to get finance. So whatever was not making an impact and not making a profit, we didn't do. And I fought for 4 years with my board, because they were pushing me in cards, they were pushing me in payments, they were saying you cannot be a bank without fee income, you cannot be a bank without cards and ATMs. And until 2012, where I always was prolonging. And when we broke even in 2012 and 2013, profits were going, then they stopped telling me what to do, And from then onwards, we were just doing better and better, doing always what the bank is not prescribing you to do, because I was looking always outside of banking. Like 10 years ago, I said cards will be obsolete. Somebody else will take cards from banking, and banks will be losing money on cards. And you see today that cards will not make money for banks.
So just on cards itself, some of the banks are really thinking, yes, there are other non-bank systems like Apple Pay and things like that, but how do you square the fact that Apple Pay is not really a values-based system, and you're being a values-based bank? Have you thought about that?
But this is a necessity for clients. So they'll use a payment operator which is cheaper for them. And we as a bank, I always focused on our competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage, the only competitive advantage, is assessment of risk judgment. That's the thing that Apple Pay cannot do still. And a long time will go before they will do it in Serbia. We as banks, our real competitive advantage is only the risk assessment. We can judge the risk, take deposits and sell it for more with the assessment of risk. Anything else can be outsourced. Anything else can be done by Apple Pay, by PayPal, by all the other people. So we focused on the things that we can do better than that.
So let me take a step back and give us a picture of the Serbian banking and Serbian environment in terms of the kinds of risks that you have, because you have, of course, sovereign risk and then going down to operational risk, which you're describing. But what's the context within which you're operating in Serbia?
The context is very, I would say, Eastern European in a way of being completely regulated by central bank within the EU rules. So Basel III, for example, we had to introduce before Italy. I know that we did it before Italy because I talked to Banca Etica about it. So we have complete EU environment, as far as banking is concerned. anti-money laundering, all the other things, IFRS 9, and so on and so on. At the same time, we are very banco-centric in financing, and this is really probably strange for EU, for UK and US people. So here, banks and leasing companies are financing people, not different kind of finance, are not available. So banks are it's very banco-centric system. Banco-centric means also 20 banks in Serbia, 2 are tycoon-owned, so kind of a pig bank by tycoons, and 17 are big international banks, including, Crédit Agricole, Intesa, Unicredit, Societe Generale until yesterday, Sberbank, and so on. All these banks want to have corporate clients and want to have big SME and want to have retail. They are not interested in small farmers and small SME, which we are doing. So this is the system that we were choosing the blue ocean for us. We said, let's do what they are not doing, because we cannot compete on size, we cannot compete on price. We can compete only on differentiation, different clients.
So with this focus, let's focus on agriculture for a minute. One of the questions that comes up is, how do you make sure that your values live in the ways that you engage with and relate to the farming community, that gives you that edge?
Our edge, we are now 51% market share in
so even more.
51, yeah. Our edge is the fact that we are the only one that want to finance them, because again, coming to the context, our average agro client has 3 cows. It's not a milk production for any bank. It's milk production only for us, because 3 cows enable a family to live in Serbia. They sell a little bit, they make cheese, they produce. So that's the average client of us. The average amount is like 3,000 euros. So the other banks don't see them. They are not existent for them. Like, when I was like heading the business development and going with my loan officers, even today I go to branches very much. I was coming to them and I said, how many villages in this village? How many houses? And they would say, it's 50 houses. I say, how many clients for a bank? They would say 1 or 2. And I say, no, it's 50 clients, because every house can have a loan, depending on the size. And being so close to our clients, understanding them, talking to them, being open, not being a banker, closed banker waiting for the branches, because we have 300 loan officers who are driving every day to our clients. We have more loan officers on the field than all the banking sector together.
And when one thing, first of all, I should just mention that for those of you who want to put questions in the chat, you can do that. So we will be picking up some of those questions as well. But when I look at you and your character and the way that you're doing this very localized, very connected, committed work, I want to go back into your biography again and ask, have you always been like this? Has there always been that rebel in you that drives towards what is it that actually inspires you to move forward in this banking environment?
One thing that really defined me, and this is really probably Eastern European context, would be we are probably the only bank that advances you on merits. There is no nepotism. I had even in interviews, I had American ambassador congratulating me when I said 250 employees, nobody is my friend or my relative. That's very rare in Eastern European context. And why is that? Because first, that's my value. And secondly, when I finished college, I could not find an employment. And the first employer who took me was Opportunity in 1999, because everything was nepotism. So I felt on my own skin, what does it mean to have, your parents find your job or your friend find your, So I think the bank was built on the virtues and on the values that no bank has in this country. No nepotism in approving loan, no nepotism in hiring people, no nepotism in finding suppliers for anything. So we have really, really distinct culture, and that's why we have very little turnover in the management, because we are not hierarchical. We always value everybody's opinion. We value, the kind of democratic participative management style, which is very rare. When I'm talking that to Dutch people, they say that's normal. No, here in this part of the world, it's not normal. And that's why we are fighting so successfully.
And you have your heroes as well as leaders. You've said to me you've read widely, and say a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I say BlackRock, everybody would say, how can you connect your BlackRock to you? But I learned one good thing from BlackRock CEO and CFO. They founded the company. And this is this radical transparency concept, which I basically promoted in this bank in 2009. I said, if somebody is not doing well, tell him immediately. If somebody is doing well, tell him immediately. No hidden agendas. Transparently tell people what you think, And this is a BlackRock concept that really helped us even today. Even today, every manager in this bank knows if he's doing well or if he needs to improve or whatever, because the same went then for Elon Musk, not from banking, because when he was starting Tesla, he said the only way how we will win over Mercedes and BMW is by killing the silo. So resolve the problem of the client on your level. Don't go to the upper levels of management and try to resolve problems, And from 2013, when I read this book and when I went into this, we were resolving the problem for clients or problem for the bank on a much lower level, which killed the silos. This is very unusual for Serbian and for Eastern European banking. Again, GPS, Amazon. Amazon is the capitalistic company to the core. But I said in one moment, in order to help our loan officers to be more efficient, let's GPS them. We are probably maybe the only bank in the world that has real-time GPS positioning of all sales force, 300 people on the field with the GPS. I didn't do that to track them and to control them, but to help them achieve. With the GPS, we are making their routes. They know when to call the client, when to call potential clients, delinquent clients, and so on. So we used a lot of things outside of banking, much more than from the banking. A lot of ideas, not reinventing the wheel.
One more anecdote that you shared with me is that you had learned something from Good to Great as well. Do you want to share that, this idea of bullets rather than cannonballs?
Absolutely. Good to Great, was the book. When I read it in 2009, I was thinking, this book is like, I read it when I was born. It's but that's how I tried to build a bank. And it was first, no passengers in a train. So you cannot have people who are not believing in the same values. The second one, the very important one, is this first bullets and then cannonball. Never risk everything on the new thing. Develop your existing thing, use them as a revenue creator, and then try the new ones that will create your future. Don't ever bet the big things on the new IT or something. And when I say IT, very good thing which we always do, and even today, use IT investment as an accelerator, not momentum creator. This was a big difference to most banks. Most banks buy IT systems, new solutions, and bankings, everything to create momentum. No, you have first to create a service or product and then input IT to help that digitize the product.
So you get an accelerator on the product level. Can you give us an example of that in your own bank?
Like for example, 2014, I was thinking how to create a quick response to loan to client advisor to clients in the farming community. So I said, let's shorten the response from 3 days to 1 hour. And 1 hour was, client advisor comes to the field, you check everything because you send all the data by mobile phone, and your head office responds and tells you approved, because of the checking the credit bureau, MIS system, and everything else. And then my IT person, Raiko, who is our executive board, he comes up and he says, we'll buy a tablet, it will be connected to the internet, everything, and tablet did everything in 25 minutes, But we first had the service and product and the process, and then inputted the technology in it. Before that, it was a SMS sending.
Yep. So very, very good example. And there are some segments that I think are really, most banks would find quite challenging that you're in. So working with low-income pensioners, working with microcredit entrepreneurs. Can you say a little bit about what your strategy and tactics for that work has been, also to bring this values-based aspect to their lives?
Well, this would be a really nice example. When we went to the pensioners, we were the first bank that created a product for pensioners in Serbia. Because pensioners, even being a big chunk of population, everybody was pushing them in retail. So we created a product that costed few percent more than the loan for the other banks. Other banks wanted a whole relationship. So card, debit card, credit card, account, and the loan. And I said, no, we'll do just the loan, which will be effective rate 17%, and the other banks were offering 12%. And why would they buy from us? Because we were quicker, first in approval, and secondly, even they had an account with them. So we allowed them to use this non-revenue making activity for us, and we were giving a loan which would make a revenue. But why did it come to us? Because we said to our loan officers, talk to them. So they will not stay in front of the window. You will ask them how many grandchildren they have, what do they buy to their grandchildren. So you talk as long as they want, and they sit with you. They are not in front of the teller. First, and then secondly, we organize their dancing parties for pensioners. And our loan officers went to pensioner parties, which we sponsored sometimes, their clubs. So we were part of their community. We didn't keep them in front of the window and say, just finish the transaction, go. So we become really successful pensioners because we understood them, and we tailored our service to what they want the most, and that is the understanding and respect.
Wonderful. And as it relates to the entrepreneurs, that because this is, I think, a relatively new segment, as I understood it.
We do entrepreneurs but we are really growing a lot. Entrepreneurs are just underbanked, because a lot of them are doing just the minimal amount of transaction to the account, and because of that, no banks want to finance them. And we understand entrepreneurship because we are entrepreneurs ourselves. We approach them with a deep understanding and going into the details, because most banks assess them only through their income statement, and income statement is mostly blank with the small entrepreneurs who are just starting. Yeah. So we understand them, we give them a chance when we have a adequate, not security. We almost do all the lending uncollateralized. When we have enough assurance that this project will continue and succeed. And many of our tips, like one of the tips, if you have a small entrepreneur working in a village for 10 years and he had no revenue drop in last 2 years, just lend him 3 years. Well, you don't have to even to ask. He will not bankrupt in the next 3 years if he was successfully working for 10 years.
So is that what is sort of the secret to your being able to keep your default rates low? Is that
the secret is tailored approach. It's not just the credit scoring. It's also seeing the client in the field in his house with his family, And we digitize. We have now digital loans also. So we are not only doing everything in personal approach. We have this combination of personal and digital, So we digitize, we score, but in the same time we have this, personal approach, which is also quality check. We quality check. We have a department that checks 10% of all loans on the field.
Fantastic. Well, and as you think about, because I know entrepreneurs think about the future, and what do you have in mind? Are you thinking of growing your products, growing your geography, or new markets? What's your ambition?
Well, our vision is that Bank as a GABV project, I would say, I would call it, subjectively, the best GABV project. I would see that expand out of Serbia. I know exactly 3-4 countries that would be expand. And so we would expand probably to the countries that don't have GABV members. So we will have another 3-4 GABV members, and the countries that have the same demand and no offer from the banks, very, very regional. So we know the markets, and that's the biggest ambition. And then our vision is also to grow a little bit with the loan sizes to, let's say, 50,000 euro loans, because these small SMEs are also very underbanked in Serbia and in the region, because banking is I would say banking as an industry is in a deep trouble because of the rising compliance cost and rising the administration. Banks are going away from small tickets, and that leaves all these small and startups and small businesses unbanked. So only the models like ours, which is very lean and very client-centric and very I would say in the same time, we could write a book about this, but like me and my executive board, 5 of us, we have 1 executive secretary working for us. We have 2 cars in the whole bank, 2 company cars, and we have 600 employees and 300 people driving every day. So it's a lot of things that we are rebellious if you look at normal bank, as bank is created many years ago.
Yeah, it's very rebellious and also very, very lean in the way you're describing it as well. I'll come back to the GABV in a minute, but there are a couple of questions that people are raising. First of all, where is the innovation in the products and service coming from? Is it clients in your rural areas? Is it client-facing co-workers on the ground? What's the source of your innovation?
It's the sources are different. Sometimes it goes from a bottom up. Like, for example, one innovation I remember very well is the focus groups. When the clients told us, when we go over 75 years of age, we will not be able to be financed. So we were the first bank in 2015 to offer loans up to 80. Nobody was offering over 75. And then we saw like the average age was just shifting up, and our banks realized that people are not dying anymore with 75, living until 80. And we were the first bank that, because of the focus groups, clients were afraid of not being able to get financed. So that's one good example from. But then we also in the management have a lot of, like, for example, 2008 when we started lending to farmers. My theory was, I don't want to know agriculture. I want just to provide them with a easy, affordable financing. They know what they're doing. That was completely different than most banks are thinking.
Yeah, and that personal relationship using the technology is a great combination. Another question is, why and how does this actually make 3Bank a leader in sustainable market transformation, either socially or environmentally? So what is it, again, in the way that you're doing this that leads to that?
It's I think we are a little bit lucky there, because no banks is even trying to be leader in social and environmental transformation. They are so much obsessed with their returns on equities and with their defending their positions. That's why I'm saying banking is deep trouble. The sheer fact of ownership of distant shareholders putting some management in place who is really distant and looks only for a prolonged tenure, not being a part of the story. And we were different. The whole management, my executive board, 20 years, myself, CFO, 20 years, 18 years, chief operating officer, chief relationship officer, 11 years. We were different. This was our life. We invested ourselves. We didn't look for only defending us and doing things to satisfy the shareholders who we don't even know who is it. So in a way, it's not easy. It's not hard, at least in this part of the world, to be leader in social and environmental protest, because otherwise don't really care.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting market anomaly for you. I just got a message from our Spanish translator saying that we need to speak a little more slowly, just so you know. The next question that comes up on the chat here is, what transformations did 3Bank undergo during the COVID period that might be here to stay now, and what opportunities have emerged as a result of those transformations, of going through COVID? It's a bigger question of what did you learn from that, and what are you using from that?
It's interesting. I was really, really worried when the COVID struck, because I was worried for deposits, because suddenly there was rows in front of banks, and we're not a big bank, but we have a large deposit base, and I was really worried for deposits. And I had a sleepless probably 7 days, the first 7 days when this calmed down. But one of the first messages, I remember that Friday, without even asking my board, I wrote email to all staff and saying, no matter how long COVID will last, nobody will lose the job over COVID. I felt empowered that I can do that because we have a triple bottom line. People, planet, prosperity. People is also our people. So I said, we will not fire anybody because of COVID. And I was thinking it's a little bit desperate, but I said, I want them in this desperate situation to know that they have a job. Yeah. After 6 months, wherever, because I go to the branches a lot, in every branch I went, they said, that was the only message we heard in the community, because they all talked to other bankers, to other companies. Everybody was laying out workers. And they all remembered that the only bank that said nobody will lose job over it. This was a really, really big learning, for us. The same went for clients, where we were probably the only bank that says, we don't think about portfolio. I remember bankers in the central bank meetings saying, we have a risk. We have a risk hedging, no problem. Some clients will default, but we will cover up. And I said, no, you are talking the wrong side. You are talking about yourselves. Let's talk about clients. How can we give them a grace period, moratoriums, so they survive?
Yeah. So it's really with the interest in mind of those clients and how they can grow and build and develop both their businesses and as human beings. If we build a little bit on the technology question, technology seems to play an important role in the success and innovation of 3Bank. How are you developing this technology so that it meets your needs? And are you buying it off the shelf? Are you finding solutions? Are you designing specifically for 3Bank? And I would say now and in the future, what's your aspiration as well as what are you doing?
That's kind of a moving target. I would say so far we were successful because we always, when we're buying things, we always look to the company similar to us. So for example, the tablet thing, which I was mentioning before, was developed by a local company called Micro-Circuit that is like 1 year ago sold to a big company because of this IT development. But for many years, they developed tablet for us. The whole tablet approval tool, which was 2014, it was a revolution for microfinance bank, for 10,000 euros, because there were like 3 employees. And we cooperated with them. We didn't buy the off shelf. We worked with them, and they were really good partners for us. Now they're sold to the big company. We probably will not be able to work with them like we worked before, but we always give chance to somebody to grow with us. The same goes for marketing agencies. The same goes to the other suppliers of paper or anything else. We always try to give chance to somebody for whom we would be the main client or the big client or the important partner. So back to technology, I would not say we ever solved it, because in Serbia, finding an IT programmer is a huge problem. Having the not turnover in your IT is a huge problem. But we always kind of come differently. We don't buy off the shelf. For example, we are now the first bank in Serbia that have a fully digital loan. First bank of all 20 international banks. Our investment there is 100,000. The other banks invested a couple millions. We are before them because we did one-time password. They still are signing on and then scanning we do one-time password. That's why the fully digital. Why we did it so cheaply? Because we said, let's do a loan as a loan, not the whole banking solution with all perks and twists, changing the currencies, because we don't need it. Our clients are not, changing the currency on banking with us because they don't have currency. They're really poor people that need 1,000 euros loan on 24 months, So we just bought a solution for a loan approval, and we will build around that solution. But for now, we took what we needed.
Very interesting. I'm looking over the list of questions again, and thank you, Vladimir. Again, it's so entrepreneurial. I'm really fascinated with this thought that you're really seeing what's there and doing something with it. Martin is asking you, he said, thank you for this fascinating account. The market in Serbia seems to be quite particular. How long do you think that this market will stay like this, or is it changing? And will the banks eventually enter the market? How do you see this landscape? going forward?
Unfortunately, I think this market will stay as it is for 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Unfortunately, because that's not good for Serbia. Because again, Central Europe, Central Eastern Europe is very banco-centric, and finance is mainly provided by banks. And banks, because of their sheer ownership size and increasing compliance costs, are running away from labor-intensive clients. Our clients are labor-intensive. You need to think about them. You need to see the family, see the farm, see the small business. You understand what they're doing, you know. So I think our market will just open up, and that's why I'm very, very, I would say brave in thinking that we will make three banks in neighboring countries and will be with same success like in Serbia, because that countries have the same need. Like for example, Montenegro. I'm from Montenegro. Montenegro has no bank that finances small and business and farms. No bank. Nobody's really interested.
Wow, it's opportunity for sure. How do you know that you're having an impact? It's one of the questions. And when you do know, are you confident in this case? Is it through achieving certain KPIs? What's your measure? Is it through your products and services, through the intention that you have in your strategy?
I know it's a good question. Yeah, we try to have this have external, kind of external assessment, and we did a couple or three times this kind of a social rating, which basically assess whether you are having any impact. And our social rating was A, but by Microfinance and Planet Rating. So they assessed that we are making an impact because they interview the clients and so on and so on. Beside that, I'm very about hard figures. And hard figure is saying that 43% of our new clients never had a loan before. 43%, which means that we were the first one to finance them ever. We checked the credit bureau, so they cannot had a credit before. And that means we got somebody into the banking sector in financing somebody who never got financed before. Then the job creation. We are calculating the job creation. So far, we created 60,000 jobs, in our lifetime of 20 years. So we created 60,000 new jobs, because every time we refinance the client, we look whether he has an additional job or he decreased the jobs or something, So we use few measures, to assess our impact.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a good nose as well. Which
yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to assess the impact, but we are always thinking if we offer something, because we believe that financial inclusion is one of the most important inclusion. Financial inclusion gives you the chance to live a life with pride, because if you have to borrow money from your parents or your neighbor, that's killing the social pride. That's killing the social standing.
Yeah, and this sounds like as a loan officer and as a banker for the number of years you've been, this is something from your heart. It sounds like something you really feel.
Absolutely. I think that I saw the hundreds of examples, because I like to be on the branches very much. Those are my nicest days. Like hundreds of examples when you have somebody really poor living in a distant house, not having friends. Someday he gets a finance for something, gets into the project, and becomes, after 5 years, you see the same person becomes the leader of the community, because he knows he made it and he wants to help his neighbors. Because like we had a case in southern Serbia in Niš. The woman was a single mother. She had nobody to help. We gave her a loan. She made a flower production. Later on, she formed the alliance of flower production, women who were all single mothers. She didn't insist on being, but they were usually women who had no source of income. And she became a leader of the I would say almost a cartel of flower production in southern Serbia.
Wow. And can you share more stories? Is one of the things someone put in the chat, where your commitment to do good has led you to ask questions that others haven't raised, just like your example of asking what you do for clients rather than for the bank during the meeting with other bankers. What questions are you asking yourself right now and working to find answers to?
One of the questions I mentioned, and is much wider than banking, what is this shareholding, basically the large company shareholding making to the end client? When you have shareholders who are somewhere on the big stock exchange, investing in Citibanks or Bank of Americas, putting the management in place, and that management doesn't think about clients at all. And the same for the pharma companies, for all other companies, for IT companies, which never really thinks about the clients, about the benefit of their society, but only thinks about their benefits, and their longer term standing. So this is much bigger than Serbia, much bigger than myself. But I'm all the time coming back and saying, how can we replicate more examples like Tree Bank, where people would work for the company, but think of their own house, and trying to every day go home and know that they did something good for the community where they live in, not just for themselves.
Beautiful. And just to pick that thread up and think about the GABV, I know that that you were one of the people early on when you joined GABV to say we should just become the GABV bank, one bank. That was your wide thinking. But I'm thinking, what are some things that you feel like we could do in the GABV, and what do you draw inspiration from and even good ideas from in the work that we do together?
Well, I can say that GABV really changed my world, changed my life. I'm so grateful to Triodos, because I started first working with Triodos, and then they told me, why don't you join GABV? We joined GABV 2017, first meeting in Barcelona, European chapter. I went home and I was thinking, first time in my whole career, I talked to the similar people, to the people that have the same values. They understood what I'm talking about. First time. Yeah. I was member of the other network, which was Opportunity International, a really nice network, Christian network headed from Chicago, with the good values. But it was much different, because the values were much more spiritual. Well, I don't have spiritual values. We are very kind of European, not very spiritual. So I saw people that are doing good, not because of some spiritual belief, but because they think that's the only way how you should live your life, and that's what I felt in GABV. When you ask me what GABV could do more, I think with a small team you do a tremendous job. If in a perfect world, I would like more banks like Tree Bank to be owned by GABV members with the management who would have long-term vision for the banks, and would really challenge the universal banking and making banking for the people. Banking for the people, not banking for the banks.
I love your exuberance, and with your attitude that's very looking for opportunities, and also optimistic. I'm wondering, are there dark sides to this? Are there bottlenecks? Are there things that are going to hinder growth and get in your way? You seem to be able to overcome so much.
Yes, I'm not really afraid for our business at all. Many people say, what is like sleepless night? My sleepless night was deposit during the COVID, for example. And then when the Ukraine crisis hit, because, deposits are always for the banks. We are not a sales business. We need to think about people's deposits. But for us, the thing that hinders growth can be only the not enough capital on offer, which means, if we want to grow in all these countries, we need initial capital in each of them. And I'm sure within the next 10 years, we will get the capital, either we'll create it ourselves, because we started with 1 million, we are now 40 million capital bank, so it's quite a big, growth. But that's my only thing, how far we can go. And And one thing that can hinder growth is definitely because at the end, people are still in every country greedy. They always look what is their returns. When I hear Triodos talking about people want to know that where there is money, I know, but it's still a small percentage of people that want to invest in a bank that is doing good. Most people are still buying the stock of Citibank or Bank of America. That's the thing that hinders the perfect banking growth, which I see.
So you're definitely an advocate for values-based banking. And what I'm thinking is how do you take ideas like yours and put them into a wider scale? And I'm getting another signal saying, please speak slowly as well. So how do you think there are things that are scalable? I mean, you're working in a quite unique position, as Martin said. What do we need to copy from this experience and from 3Bank?
Well, I would say I spoke to our European colleagues, and I think they could copy a little bit of our first, we call it my first loan, digital loan. Why? Because Europe suddenly gets a lot of people that will be financially excluded. If I spoke 5 years ago, Netherlands, Germany would not have this problem. Now, 5 years on, I think you have a problem with this. My first loan. All the refugees from Ukraine, from Syria, Libya, they might be the clients. So if you want to scale, I would suggest looking into our product and potentially do it in Germany, in Netherlands, in Belgium, in some of the other countries, because you will have a new population of people that will be trying to build their life from scratch. So I think that's something to learn, and that's something that can be scaled, because many times we think the only problem of, let's say, Netherlands is green, it's planet, but it's not. Suddenly it might be again the people, which means the financial inclusion, so that's something that I think can be scaled up, and when I'm talking about our model, I from Czech Republic and Slovakia and Poland on the east, it can be done everywhere.
Absolutely. I can see that we are entering into this space of social challenges, social problems, and the need to reinforce the social fabric. And one of our questioners is asking, what more can we learn from you about how you are strengthening the social fabric in Serbia? I mean, you've talked about taking the unbanked to banking. What more do you feel you're doing that makes sure that people have a chance in the real economy?
Our universal goal of the bank was that we want by 2030 have universal access to finance for all economically active adults in Serbia. So universal access to finance, which means for business, for consumer, for urgent needs. Usually it's urgent needs. When somebody borrows and he's temporarily employed, it's not for buying a new car. It's probably for health, or for putting the windows, or for buying a new boiler, which is broke, so on. So we want to enable universal access to finance. And then we want little by little to include our green component, because we want to start first, next year we'll start with the green loans for energy efficiency, for insulating the farms and farming houses with EBRD. We have a project, I think it should start in February, and we will start a small loans for green, because we are very, very much about sustainability also, But, in poor countries, you usually start first with financial inclusion, and then you add the green components, But for example, let's take one example. In US, I know US quite well. I was a student at one moment. Southern is a great example of financial inclusion in the most developed country, Southern Bank. They found a whole niche of people that have no access to finance. And many times when you think, like, I'm very much looking to amalgamate it, example, in April next year, to see. I'm sure that there are so many of temporary workers that can not have real access in New York City. I don't know, but I guess, and there's so many places in the world that value-based banks could help people include themselves into the societies.
Well, I think that there are many ideas that you're bringing across that can really transfer. Last question, as we bring this to a close. Your deep dedication to values-based banking is obvious. How do you bring your staff along on the journey and get them committed to the values of the bank?
But it's interesting, you know, when I first time went to annual conference, I said one thing amongst the CEO group, and many of them were repeating that one thing. And I said, we never hire bankers. We never hire bankers. You know, it's almost true. For some really technocrat position, we have sometimes to hire bankers, like risk or finance people. But 35 branch managers in our bank. We now have 38 branch managers. All started in our bank as loan officers. 38. We never hired a branch manager in the last 5 years from anybody else. You know, we hire for values, we hire for attitude, and then we teach a skill. We don't want. We always had problem with teaching somebody values and attitude. Attitude was always a problem. You know, he can have a skill, but attitude, because he would always look from a different side. You know, I'm a banker, I'm protected, I should think about myself. No. You are here because of that client.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's really a great starting point, and your point about attitude is so essential. I said it was the last question. There's one more that's popped up. Are you good for one more?
Yes.
How does 3Bank think about its partnerships with local stakeholders? Are there services that are offered, educational, collaboration with civil society or other organizations? We haven't really delved into that, but what does your your network of relationships look like, and do you see that as important?
We see that as very important, and we, like, for example, want to really, we always take the students on a voluntary basis, you know, and even pay them. You know, we get a lot of people through these faculties, you know, through these really internship programs, and all. We will never negate somebody to come to learn from us, you know, what we do and what our work. Then we are very active in promoting the entrepreneurship. We are sponsoring the state-known the micro-entrepreneurial of the year event. Last year it was really the prime, you know, the Minister of Finance was there, you know, so we are very much promoting entrepreneurship, job creation, and you know, really supporting all the social causes, you know. We are probably the only bank, and really we stay out of politics. I always stay out of politics. I'm never. I was many a times offered, but you have no connection. Wherever I see politics, we stay back, you know.
And I'm wondering, as you go home every night and you sit and you say, this is why I do what I do. What's your answer to that?
Absolutely, you know, absolutely. You know, we are protected, and it's a really beauty of our model. I'll give you 2 examples. We are protected by our model. For example, you know, why politicians never call me? Because I declare that nobody who I know works in the bank, no nepotism, so I cannot employ anybody. I cannot help them employ their kids. You know, that's first. And secondly, I cannot finance them because the biggest loan is 34,000, I think, in this bank, or 37 now. And they're not really interested in 37,000 euros. They want 5 million, you know, politicians for their related companies, you know. So we are protected by the model. Or when the war struck, which was disaster, personally for me, disaster, some of the foreign banks, mostly foreign banks, said we will not work with Russians and Belarusians. And I was thinking, you know, if we do this, I'll immediately go into the politics. So I said we will not work with anybody, and we said we are now opening accounts only for Serbian citizens. You know, so nobody would accuse me of politics, and we protected, you know, ourselves. So this is the bank where you can open account only as a Serbian citizen now.
Wow.
So we kind of stayed out of politics and didn't open account for anybody who is Eastern or Western afterwards, you know.
Which I think is one of your keys to success and you know, creating a thriving bank, Vladimir. Vladimir, I just want to, in summary, say some of the things that I have as an image in my head now are your bankers dancing with elders. Um, this idea of radical transparency that you bring to what you do, something I would call high tech, high touch, right? So you're able to be in both of those worlds. That attitude is really, really important, and then skill that follows, holding this meritocratic line and no nepotism, and staying really human centric. And I think what you just said, in your 2030 report, universal access to finance. That's what you're so much about. Thank you for sharing, for your energy. We'll have to apologize to our Spanish listeners, and maybe even some of our English listeners, of the speed with which a person coming from your region speaks. But I understood you well, but that's maybe just because I'm here to be able to interview you and so on. So thank you so much. Beautiful what you've been able to bring, not only today, but I've enjoyed having you in the annual meetings, and the contribution you make, and the fact that everyone's going that way and Vladimir's going that way. It's wonderful. So good luck, and wish you a lot of success in the future.
Thank you for inviting me, Tom.
Yep. And thank you to all of those who listened today as well. We very much appreciate that you tune into the spotlights, and hopefully if you can tell your colleagues in the GABV that they can listen to the recorded spotlight as well. And thanks to the production crew that have put this all together from the GABV.
Thank you.